Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, which is organized by the HESI Committee on Transforming the Evaluation of Agrochemicals. My name is Sandrine Deglin, and I'm a Senior Scientific Program Manager at HESI. And with me today are three of my colleagues, Raechel Puglisi, who is having some technical difficulty, but she's going to rejoin soon, as well as Dr. Patricia Bishop and Dr. Gina Hilton. And I will let them introduce themselves later as they will help moderating the Q&A. So we are thrilled to have you join us today for this informational webinar about the Tea Global Challenge. This is really a unique chance for you to demonstrate your scientific expertise and your creativity and to push the boundaries of traditional methods in agrochemical safety evaluation. So whether you're here to learn more about the details of the competition, or maybe you're already plotting and planning your winning strategy, we've got all the information you need right here. So before we dive in, just a little bit of housekeeping. I just want you to know that this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted in a couple of days on the Tea Committee webpage of the HESI website, so hesiglobal.org. And you are all muted during this presentation. So if you would like to ask questions, you can use the question box in your control panel. So you have a little screenshot there on the right. So type your questions in the box and your questions will be read at the end by Gina, Patricia, and Raechel. And if you would like some more information about the challenge, information will or is posted on the Tea Challenge, and we will post new information there as time goes by. For example, we have some key dates that are still to be determined, so we will update that website as we go along. So over the next 20 or 25 minutes, I'm going to say a word about HESI, give you some background about the Tea Committee as well as the Tea Challenge. And hopefully by the end of this call, you will know all about HESI, you will know all about the Tea program, and you will better understand what the Global Challenge is about. And so that means what the goal of the challenge is, what is expected from you, what you can expect from us, but also what you can get out of that challenge and some logistical details. So first, what is HESI? So for those of you who are not familiar with the organization, HESI is the Health and Environmental Sciences Institute. And we are a nonprofit organization located in Washington, D.C. So our office is in D.C., but we're a global organization and we work with scientists all over the world. So the mission of HESI is to create a collaborative environment in which we bring scientists from government, academia, and industry, as well as other partners, to answer questions and solve problems that pertain to ecological and human health. So all of our programs are organized in technical committees, and you have a list here. Actually, I think now we're more at 18 scientific committees. And the Tea program is one of them. But I encourage you to visit our website and learn more about HESI. And if you have questions after that, send me an email, and I'm always happy to answer questions. But to jump into the Tea Committee now, I want to give you a little bit of background about that particular program. So according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, by 2050, we will need to produce 60% more food to feed a world population of just over 9 billion. So the planet is changing. We know that population is growing rapidly, at least more rapidly in some areas than others. It's unevenly distributed. We know that there are some areas that suffer of decrease in arable land, decrease in adequate water supplies. And we also know that because of climate change, there are new pest pressures that appear continually. So we need to develop and expand sustainable agriculture. So to maintain yields and to address these existing and emerging pressures, we need plant protection products and we need them to be safe. And so that's when the registrations process, comes in. So that process is there to ensure that these plant protection products are safe for human health and for the environment. So the process requires a certain number of toxicity tests to be done to ensure that there is no undue health risk to exposed populations, whether we're talking about occupational populations or people who may consume agricultural products. And the process also requires the consideration of residue limits, for example. So those establish permissible levels in food to ensure that consumption of agricultural products is safe. And that includes for vulnerable populations. So registrants must also assess the impact of their products on non-target species, and that includes beneficial insects like bees, for example, but also birds and aquatic organisms and other wildlife. And registrants also have to evaluate persistency in bioaccumulation to understand how long their product may persist in the environment and to make sure that they will not cause potential harm or long-term harm to the environment. So there are other benefits to the registration process, but in a nutshell, that process is pretty critical to balance the benefit for pest control, which involves the use of substances that are toxic to some targets, with the need to protect human health and the environment. And it helps ensure that pesticides are used responsibly and sustainably. So when registrants try to register their product, they must provide a certain amount of data and information. And there are data requirements that they have to abide by. And those data requirements touch on hazard to human health in domestic animals, hazard to non-target organisms, post-application exposure studies, and so forth. So you've got kind of a short list here. And so to provide these data, they have to abide by certain data requirements that rely heavily on animal studies. So that table on the right is just an example, kind of a sample of what kind of studies they must provide. So, you know, the first column is a list of, or a short list of data requirements from EPA and the corresponding studies according to OECD in the right-hand column. So those studies, again, rely heavily on animals, even though we do know that animal models are not necessarily ideal and they're not necessarily optimal to predict and prevent effects in humans, just because, well, we're not big rats or big rabbits, right? They're also very time and resource intensive. So when you look at this and you consider that those animal studies started being used in the 40s, and that today we have a lot of very nice science that we could be using for the purpose of chemical registration and more specifically pesticide registration, maybe we should be keeping up with the times. So science is evolving and it's evolving very rapidly. Now we have AI, we have adverse outcome pathways, new approach methodologies. We have lots of tools that we could be using and apply for the safety evaluation of plant protection products. And at the same time, risk assessors are subjected to many new constraints. So they are asked to move away from animal use. They have fewer and fewer resources. They have lots of products to assess, and timelines are getting very tight. So even though there's a lot of work that's being done in this space, the current system still kind of lags behind, and it's at the time it's not flexible enough to incorporate new science, and it certainly will not meet the demands of developing and expanding sustainable agricultures. And so that's why the Committee on Transforming the Evaluation of Agrochemicals came to be. And the committee was created in January 2021. And right after its creation, we did a problem formulation exercise. So that was kind of a brainstorming exercise where all of the members of the committee told us, what do you think the problem is in this field, right, of evaluating the safety of plant protection products. And so we distilled and compiled and kind of coalesced everything that the T committee members told us to come up with this problem statement which is kind of a mouthful, so I'm not going to read it, but the idea is that what we want to do is revamp the current evaluation paradigm for the safety evaluation of plant protection product to make it more flexible, more adaptable to new science, more adapted to global as well as local need, and basically more relevant to the current state of science. So after doing the problem formulation, we did a problem exploration exercise in which we took kind of the key precept of our problem formulation and explore what they meant. And then we turned that problem statement into a conceptual model, which is that drawing here, that kind of onion-shaped structure on the right. And you can see that all of these layers represent one of the key precepts of our problem formulation. So maybe I'm going to repeat myself a little bit, but we want the new paradigm to be exposure-led, adaptable to new science, and inclusive of new science. So that's those values or those precepts are at the core of the approach, at the core of that onion structure. We want that new paradigm to be approached in a tiered fashion. We want it to be fit for purpose, adaptable to global and local needs. We wanted to create incentive to foster data sharing and transparency and to build trust in the new system. So this sounds like a tall order, except that there's a lot that is already here to be applied, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Instead, we're trying to look at the science that is existing now and see how we can incorporate it into that new framework. So it's really a work of integration. So currently, there's a lot of work that's being done in this field. We have alternative methods. We have mechanistic-based toxicity testing. We have different databases that exist. There are lots of tools and data and method that can be used today to be incorporated into that new framework. And this other little schematic with the T and the HESI logo, I put it there because there's a lot of science that's produced at HESI that can also be incorporated into this new framework. So what's the outcome of the T program, or the sought outcome? What are we trying to reach? So we want ultimately to change that paradigm of the safety evaluation of agrochemicals. So the project really aims to identify what current and new tools are necessary to change the agrochemical testing paradigm. So once again, it's possible today to make practical improvement to the safety assessment, and also to maintain or even improve the current quality of the decision that we are making today. And we don't necessarily need to wait until we create what may seem as a perfect new system, because the current system is unlikely to be perfect anyway, right? And so we want to show that there's a good enough toolkit that allows us to efficiently and confidently implement and basically implement that new framework and to make sufficiently rapid decisions. So that's what that schematic represents, right? So on the left side of the figure, you've got what we are doing today. We have techniques that are ready to be used, that allow us to make decisions in which we're pretty confident, but it takes time. And we want to move towards the right side of the figure, where we make the same quality of decision or even better, but with more modern technologies that may seem like they are not quite as ready, but they can still fulfill the purpose or fulfill our purpose, and within a more reasonable amount of time. So these are our partners or participants in the T committee. So you see we have a good mix of public and private sector, as well as a few consultants. And this gives me the opportunity to thank all of our supporting organization. Yeah, we couldn't do this without them. So now I'm going to move on to the challenge, the T Global Challenge. So what are we trying to do with that challenge? So for one, we are trying to spread the word about the T approach that I just described. And we want to show that this approach is applicable today. We can do it today. And at the same time, we're trying to encourage a mindset change. And the idea behind that is that we have the tool to do it. We just need to change the way we think about this. And at the same time, we want to foster novelty and creativity. So I was talking about mindset. So once again, I think it's true that today we have the science, we have the technology we need to change the way we evaluate pesticides, crop protection products, mindset change. And so that's when we need you. And the question is, can products? So to come back to that cartoon, right now we're using these square wheels, and you guys can show us how to use the round wheels, right? So once again, just show you and show us, develop examples to demonstrate that those round wheels are superior to square wheels. That's kind of the idea behind that global challenge. So who can participate? Well, everyone. You can participate. You do not need to be an expert in ag chem. You can just be curious and want to show us how you can innovate. And so we encourage you to work in teams because it's just more fun, and I don't know, often more productive. But it's not an obligation. You can also work individually. And why would you participate in this challenge? Well, one, because you can, again, express your scientific creativity, propose novel cutting-edge solution to modernize the safety evaluation of plant protection products. But this challenge will also give you the opportunity to interact with these key stakeholders in the field. And the winners of this challenge will earn $2,000 in travel fund. And all we ask is that you use these funds towards relevant conferences. And if you would like, we could also help you ultimately to publish your case study if that's something that you would like to do. So you probably have seen the T-Challenge website by now. The idea behind the website is to have kind of a one-stop shop where you can find everything you need about the challenge. You don't need to go to the T committee website, but everything is contained on that website. So you will find the problem there. You will find some background reading that will help you maybe think about what we're trying to accomplish here. The rules, you will find the registration page. So that's important. We want you to register because then we will have your contact information. So that would be a way for us to communicate with you. For example, when we start publishing some dates, or if there are some updates about the challenge, that will be our way to talk to you guys. You will also find the proposal submission portal on that website. And so if you go to the portal, you can download the reporting template from the portal, and then you will be able to upload it from that same portal. So you probably saw the problems that is for you to solve. So we asked you to work on a fungicide that is used on table grapes, and we called it Vanguard. And because you love to innovate, the idea is that you are going to propose solutions that are to register this fungicide entirely without animal data. So the goal is for you to show us a very convincing argument that will convince us that you can use that fungicide safely on grapes. And all of that without animal data. So the ask is first to develop a problem statement and a conceptual model for the entire problem. So that means for the ecological and human assessment. So we want you to consider both sides first. So this is an example of conceptual model, or these two, here. This conceptual model comes from the EPA website. It's kind of a generic conceptual model. And this is another one that was built with the RAF tool, or risk assessment formulation tool, which is kind of a crude tool to build conceptual models, but it's available on the RIS21 website, which is the RIS21 committee is a HESI committee. So it's not required that you use that tool, but it can be useful. So we wanted to put it out there in case you want to use it. So the first phase of the work is for you to build a conceptual model, again, considering both human and ecological risk. Second phase of the project or of your mission is to narrow the scope. So we're not going to ask you to work on both human and ecological risk assessment. You can choose what you want to work on. So you narrow the scope of the problem according to what you want to work on. And according to that, you're going to reformulate the problem, so your problem, and revise the conceptual model. And finally, you're going to choose one of 3 registration scenarios. So in the first case, you can consider that Vanguard is a novel active ingredient that displays a new mode of action. The second scenario, Vanguard is a new active ingredient with a known mode of action. And so if you go to the T Global Challenge website, there's a list of mode of actions there that you can choose from. Or you can decide that you're going to work on the third scenario, which is that Vanguard is not a new active ingredient, but it has to be registered and considered for new uses. So all we ask is that you describe what you want to work on and that you present your proposal using the reporting template that we've provided to you. So I really want to emphasize that we are very flexible here. We realize that some of you may have access to some data, some hard data if you work in the pesticide field, but most of you may not, and it's just perfectly fine, right? So you can provide responses to the challenge that will be quantitative if you have access to data, but you can also provide solutions that are completely conceptual and just explain to us what you do. So you can make the problem what you want it to be, just be clear about what the problem you're trying to solve is, and that would be just perfectly fine, right? And also you can choose the breadth of the problem that you want to tackle. You can decide to tackle, I don't know, only human risk assessment or only ecological, or maybe just a sliver of human. You can say, well, I'm just going to work on occupational exposures, right? So once again, lots of flexibility here. So to participate, again, we ask that you register on the T-Challenge website. There is, you can designate one team lead. You also have the option to enter information for teammates. But this is important because, again, that's how we will be able to reach you. We want you to download the reporting template and to use it to provide your answers. And the deadline for submission will be November 15th. So quick overview of the timeline. We launched this challenge on May 29. We're having the webinar today. We're going to have some informational calls in August, late August, early September. So that will be for you guys to ask questions. Here I'm talking a lot, but on these calls, you will be the ones talking. So whatever questions you need to get answered, you will have the opportunity to ask. In the meantime, we're always happy to answer questions. You can always email us. Once again, deadline for proposal is November 15th. We may ask you to give virtual presentations of your proposal between November and February, which is when we will announce finalists. And the finalists will be invited to participate in the T-Symposium. So the T-Symposium is a conference that we are going to organize in the first quarter of 2025. And the attendees of the T-Symposium will choose the winners of this entire challenge. So just a word about the T-Symposium, and then I'll stop. But the idea behind the T-Symposium is to bring together the community of practice or whoever has an interest in this field, really. And we want to kind of create a forum of ideas with that symposium. So bring people, there's value in being face-to-face. That's what we want to do, right? We want to bring people face-to-face and have them talk to each other, share their knowledge and experience. The T-Symposium will be heavily geared towards case studies because once again, it's about showing the practicality of that framework, show how it can be applied today. So people with their case studies can illustrate pieces of that framework and also get feedback from other participants. So we want to foster exchange of ideas and also at the same time fortify this community. And so hopefully by the end of that, we'll know how to use these round wheels on this little card there. So that is what I had to do today. I had for you today, and we're gonna go to the Q&A now. So once again, please type your questions in the question box in your control panel. And so while you're typing questions, I'm gonna have Pat, Raechel, Gina introduce themselves briefly as they're going to help us with the Q&A. So Pat, Gina, and Raechel, would you like to go first and introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Raechel Puglisi. I'm a scientific program manager here at HESI. I'm the co-manager of the T program with Sandrine, but I also co-manage our ototox program as well as our genetic toxicology program.
Thanks, Raechel. Gina, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Sandrine. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So thank you for that presentation. It was really informative, and I'm excited for this challenge. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Gina Hilton, and I'm a toxicologist working for the PETA Science Consortium International. And I've been involved on the steering committee for T for a couple of years now, and also helping to coordinate on the T challenge. So yeah, excited that we had such a great turnout today, and looking forward to hearing your questions. Thanks. Pat?
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm Pat Bishop. I work for the Humane Society of the United States. I'm a consultant, scientific consultant for them on animal testing issues, mostly concerned with pesticide use. I've also been on the T committee for a year or two, and I'm really excited about this challenge. I hope we get a lot of participation and some great ideas coming in. And Sandrine, you did a fabulous job on presenting this, and I hope we get some good questions and some really interested folks participating in this.
Thanks, Pat.
Sandrine, it looks like we already have some questions coming in. I'll go ahead and read this first one. So, can you focus only on a specific type of human health risk assessment, for example, developmental neurotoxicity? So it sounds like the question is, within this challenge, can you focus more so on a specific endpoint within human health risk assessment? It's a good question.
Yeah. Do you want to take it, Gina, or do you want me to take it? So
I can also chime in.
Okay. Well, so I would say yes, right? Once again, this is all about flexibility. So you can make this exercise basically whatever you want. That's what I would say. All we ask is that you're clear about what you are doing. So yes, but
right. And I think that also, just to add on to that, Sandrine, is that depending on the approach that's used for specific endpoints, for example, if they're subchronic or chronic endpoints, it's very likely going to be an integrated testing approach such that it could be applicable to other endpoints as well. So I would agree with that. I think if you're thinking something endpoint specific, we would love to see that within the challenge.
thanks, Gina.
And please, just as a reminder, to type questions into the question box and not the chat box. You can use the chat box for saying hi to your friends. Okay, it looks like we have another question. I'm happy to read this one out as well. So,
sure. And just so you know, so my internet is misbehaving. So if I end up dropping out, don't be alarmed.
okay.
Okay.
We'll try to pick up where we can.
Okay.
Okay, so hey Sandrine, great to see you again. My questions are related to the proposed protocols. For example, Oh, are you there, Sandrine?
Yes, sorry,
Okay.
it's going in and out, so yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, I'm just going to read it out loud, and then I can try to answer it, or Pat and Raechel. So my question is related to proposed protocols. For example, is it possible to propose a technique using zebrafish? I need to restrict myself to the lifespan that zebrafish are considered to be in vitro testing. So, for example, embryos only, or could I propose adult zebrafish for an animal reduction purpose? That's a good question. So essentially, if vertebrate animals were used, how to distinguish between adult or early life stage, and should that be considered in the protocol at all?
Yeah. So ideally, we would like to not use animals at all. Now, we don't exclude that you may have to use animals. It would be good if you could show us. So they may be, you may have to use a combination, right? But we really encourage you to minimize the use of animals. And I think in the reporting framework, we also say, well, if you end up having to use animals in your proposal, can you justify why, right? I mean, it's perfectly, it's possible, but just tell us why. So in that case, I mean, I would say, yeah, you can propose a solution using zebrafish. I mean, Gina, Pat, I don't know if how you're looking at this.
I guess I would agree. I mean, if you can do it without animals, that's the, that's kind of the ultimate that we're looking for. If you still find a need to bring in animals, again, justify that need, and then maybe also describe what is needed in the future to eventually get rid of animal use altogether. That's how I would suggest.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to go. Because again, right, so ultimately, if you remember that last slide I showed about the outcome of the T committee, we're not looking for perfection. I mean, right now we're trying to look at the tools that are available that we can use to decrease the use of animals, right? And so if zebrafish is one of these tools to decrease the use of, let's say, mammals, then it's good. It's just a step in the right direction, right? So I think you can approach it that way. Show us how you're bringing us one step closer to that goal that we're trying to achieve, which is trying to move away from first maybe using mammals and then later using vertebrates, and then maybe animals altogether. So it's there's kind of a spectrum. So just show us how you allow us to move on that spectrum.
And just to add one more point to that, thanks, Sandrine and Pat, that to keep in mind that as a part of this challenge, I would strongly encourage using existing data where possible. So that is to say, discouraging active generation of new data testing on animals. So the whole point of this exercise is to be reducing and replacing. It's an exercise to really push the boundaries and be forward thinking of what does a human health risk assessment look like without testing on animals, just to be clear. So if that information is already available to you and it's something that you would like to consider, then I think that that is a point that could be considered in a weight of evidence-based assessment. But right, I mean, we're trying to fulfill a big goal here, which is why it's a challenge, right? That's why we're calling it the global challenge. It's not necessarily going to be easy. So I hope that's helpful. Okay, so we have another question. Can the team consist of academic, corporate, and government persons? That's a great question. So Sandrine or Raechel, do you want to chime in on that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I would say yes. You know, we encourage you to work in teams, and if they are multidisciplinary, all the better. So yeah, absolutely. That was an easy one.
Yeah. So all are welcome. Please tell your friends. We want to hear all perspective, all experiences. The more the merrier. And here's a really nice comment from Connie Mitchell. I just want to read out loud. So great presentation. For the point on animal use, so this is what we were just talking about, maybe it should be emphasized how newer tools could be more human or eco-relevant models, and for better science, which feeds into the 3 Rs. It's not just getting out of animal testing. I think that's relevant with your mission. So exactly, that's a really good point, is that we, within this exercise, it's not just an exercise of reduce and replace, it's an exercise of innovation. And if we have gaps within toxicity assessment, that's good to know. So those are focus areas of where we need more attention. And we need to be looking for what is that innovative science that we can use, or even existing science that's fit for purpose to fulfill regulatory needs for human health or ecological risk assessment. So thanks for that point, Connie.
Any other
They're
questions?
really great questions. I don't see any additional questions.
Right. So what we could do, and right now we do not have that on the T-Challenge website, but we will add a page, maybe with Q&A or frequently asked questions, and compile that also after the webinar. So the webinar is going to be posted on the committee page as well as the Global Challenge website. You can also email us questions, right? So I talked about some info calls at the end of August, early September. We're probably going to have 2 of them. But you don't need to wait until August or September to ask questions. So feel free to email Raechel or myself if you have questions, and we'll make sure that we post the questions on the Q&A or the frequently asked question page, so everybody can benefit from them.
So it looks like another question came in. Is the chemical a real chemical, or is this a purely conceptual exercise? Yeah, the chemical is not a real chemical, but we did want to give some kind of a class of chemicals so you have a little bit more to work with. You know, it is a chemical that's used on grapes. It is meant to be consumed. They're eating grapes, so you know you would be looking at certainly dietary, human health issues, as well as application issues. So we just wanted to give something to sort of ground you in, like, how would you actually deal with a chemical that is being used in this manner. So no, it's not a real chemical at this point.
Thanks, Pat. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Well, if not,
Going once, going twice.
yeah, right. Okay. So if we have no other questions, I guess we're going to end here. But so I really hope that you guys are excited and that a lot of you are going to participate in this. I really want to thank you for registering and for participating. I'm sure some questions are going to come up. Again, don't hesitate to email Raechel or me, and the recording is going to be available. So do we have maybe one more question? I see something popping up.
It looks like 2. So Nina asked, do we know which wildlife we are aiming to protect? Is the first one.
Well, so once again, that's the flexibility piece. So as you develop your solution, you can just tell us what your protection goals are, and it will be fine. It's almost like we're giving you a wide and kind of vague frame for the problem, and it's going to be your job to kind of narrow that frame and define it very precisely as you provide your solution.
Helpful. That's a really great question. What I think is a helpful way to think about it from a starting point is what is currently regulated. And so what's challenging in this global exercise is that ecosystems obviously vary and are incredibly diverse on a global scale. If you think about ecological requirements within North America, just as a starting point, that would be protection for, at least as far as the toxicity data requirements, that's avian, fish, bees, just depending on what the product is and how it's being applied. Obviously, I know you guys all know that. So that's something to think about as far as a starting point when we're thinking about what is the current risk paradigm and what are those current data needs, and how much would that potentially change in a new paradigm. So there would still probably be some sort of eco monitoring of aquatic and terrestrial species. But to be honest, that might look different in somewhere like Australia. So it really just depends. And I think, I don't want to speak for Sandrine or Raechel, but I'm thinking that we would like to hear those perspectives from other regions as far as what are the ecological risk assessment needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of the mission of the whole T program, right? So adaptable to global and local needs, right? So if you want to talk about some species that you're concerned about in your part of the world, why not, right? We encourage you to do that. So yeah.
Somebody wrote, how about some alternatives methods to assess PNEC?
The PNEX. How about some alternative method? Yeah, I mean, I can see how that would certainly be useful too.
PNEC stands for what?
That's a cutoff level, a no effect environmental concentration, predicted no effect concentration.
Okay.
So that's in the context of pharmaceuticals. What might be a little bit tricky here is that it just really depends on residues so because of this example is a dietary exposure, for example, that exposure situation is going to be different from a pharmaceutical. So the concentrations at which no pharmacological effect is expected to occur on a specific organism. I don't know if that's similar to threshold for toxicological concern, the TTC. I'd have to look more into this, but
yeah,
typically that's not relevant for agrochemical dietary exposure.
Right. So yeah. So I think it's pharmaceutical and industrial chemicals, right? So I mean, I can see how the concept could be useful, right? Just like the threshold toxicological concern is an interesting concept. You know, we're talking about a tiered approach, right, for that framework. So I could see how demonstrate, you know, having a predicted no effect concentration in the environment could be useful. So that's, you know, I could see how someone could make a case for something like that. So even if it's maybe not applied in the, also I don't know to which extent it's used in the US. I know maybe it's more used in Europe, maybe the notion of PNEC.
Oh, okay. So it looks like, no, we had Nina chime in here. Thanks, Nina, that this is predicted no effect concentration. Many acronyms.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah.
So yes, that is relevant to aquatic systems.
Right.
Yeah, Nina also added for pesticide, it applies to drift, spray formulations, float from the field to nearby water bodies. So she's just providing an example.
Thanks, Nina.
And Connie added eco TTTCs could be part of a tiering exercise,
Right. Yeah.
potentially as a case study.
Yep, same idea.
So yes, absolutely. Please do submit. These are all really great questions. Okay, and it looks like Connie said HESI has the EnviroTalks database that could be used for coming up with the PNECs and other estimates. Thanks for that, Connie.
Yeah.
So all that's on the HESI website.
And then, yeah, comment that this is probably, the PNECs are probably just for Europe.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So any other questions?
Sandrine, with the, I know like the verbal question Q&A is being recorded, but will the actual questions and answers be part of what's posted? I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, we'll post the answers. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that covers the questions then.
Okay. Anything else? Last minute questions from the audience. All right. So again, thanks everyone for joining. Thank you, Raechel, Gina, and Pat. Appreciate your being here. Thanks to our audience, and again, hope you work brilliantly on this and that you're inspired, and we're looking forward to seeing your proposals. And please email us any questions that you may have, and keep an eye out for that frequently asked question and the recording on the website. With that, I'm going to wish everyone a good rest of your day, and thanks everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.